Welcome to Radical Abundance.
I'm your host, Jen Defoe Turner.
And I'm your host, Teresa Janzen.
We share stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things for God's glory.
Welcome to Radical Abundance. I'm your host, Teresa Janzen, and all month long we are talking about love. And today's guest is Terri Kempf. When I first met Terri, she told me that she loves love. So who better to talk about love than the woman who loves love? Welcome, Terri Kempf.
Teresa, thank you. It's a privilege and an honor to be here with you today and share what the Lord has laid on my heart for your audience.
Thanks, Terri. I know you do some writing about the topic of love and speaking about love and other things, because I know you love the Lord above all things. And I happen to know that you have a very special love story. Would you mind just sharing that story with us?
Absolutely. And to do that, I have to back up just a little bit to my childhood and share that I'm a twin, and my twin sister and I are very, very close, but we were born a month early and I had multiple birth defects. And so over the course of my childhood, I had surgery after surgery after surgery. So I feel like my first 15, 16 years on this earth were in and out of hospitals, doctors' offices, and things like that. And so that really took a toll on my confidence, my self-esteem, my value, my worth, and made it really difficult to become who I was called to become. And so I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were pastors. There was a lot of love in our home. All the wonderful things that God gave me, really helped me go through all this. But as you start to reach ages of dating and marriage and your future, those things kind of creep up on you and you feel nervous about, so many surgeries, so many scars, and what will your husband think of your body? And I'll stay PG with this podcast, but that's a normal heart cry of a young woman that wants to get married and wants to, be everything her husband desires. And so I met this man named Robert. We became best friends, and I was really just looking for a friendship. And I told my best friend at the time, Jenny, that I said, I think he's going to introduce me to my husband, because he knew everybody and he was in all the Christian circles, and we were just having a lot of fun being best friends. And the beauty of that is that the best friendship turned into romantic love, and we ended up getting married. And only the Lord knew about my heart cry for giving my body to another person with all its imperfections, if you will. And so Robert was working for a company, and the headquarters was in Pennsylvania. So he invited me to go to his Christmas party. And so he flew me to Pittsburgh, which I thought was just so cool that your boyfriend's flying you to, where he's living, to go to his company Christmas party. And of course, we had separate hotel rooms. We were trying to honor the Lord and keep our relationship pure until we were married. And at this point, we were not engaged or anything. We just were dating with the purpose. And so after the Christmas party, we were like, okay, what do we do now? It was like 9:00, and we decided to change clothes into something comfortable and, watch TV, watch a movie or something. So I had on this romper, and I don't know, back in the late 80s, early 90s, if you'll remember, the big white collar and the zipper up the back. I just looked really cute.
You have to have the romper.
You have to have the right clothes, And so I did not practice getting out of that outfit with my scoliosis and my limited motion and flexibility. I couldn't get the zipper started in the back. And so I called Robert down from his room down the hall, and I said, could you do me a favor and just meet me at my door and let me just turn around and you start my zipper to where I can reach it? And he goes, okay. And I said, no funny business, just come, unzip my zipper just enough. And he said, okay, sure. And so I opened the hotel room door and turned around, and I had my hand up as far as I could get on my back so that he could start the zipper and I could finish it. And he was still standing in the hall, and I was in the doorway trying to maintain, no funny business or anybody getting the wrong idea. And he leaned in, and then he kissed my back. And I was like, oh, and I spun around real quick. And I said, no, no funny business. And he goes, no, it wasn't that. And I said, okay, what was it? I looked up at him and he said, I kissed your scar. And he said, if I'm fortunate enough to become your husband, I will kiss every one of them as I can see them. And I just turned around and looked at him, and I was just in shock that the Lord would give me someone that would love that kind of love. And it was exceedingly and abundantly all I could ask or imagine. And I turned around, and he did not know the desire of my heart, or the cry of my heart, or the concern of my heart for that part of my life and my body. And he said, I think battle scars make the best heroes. And so I just felt like that night was the Lord saying to me, I've got you. And I'm going to give you somebody that you cannot even imagine will love you and love every part of you. And so that was the night that the Lord showed me that he loved me exceedingly and abundantly beyond what I could ask or imagine. And that was in the form of a man named Robert Kemp. So I still get teary-eyed, and I'm sorry about that, but it just still means that much to me that God would give me that and show me that kind of love. And he knew my heart's cry. And he said, I've got you. I'm taking care of you. I'm taking care of you. And so fast forward almost a year, and on our wedding night, we were, nervous and, tired and getting changed and everything. And we came together, and Robert kissed me up here, and I was like, Houston, we have a problem. I said, you missed. And he said, no, I didn't. I said, you missed my lips. He said, I wasn't kissing your lips. I was kissing your lip. And I had a cleft lip, and I had multiple surgeries on my nose and my lip and everything. And I have a scar on my lip. And so he had started our coming together on our wedding night with a kiss to one of my scars. And, I wasn't even thinking about that at that point. And then he kissed my nose because I have a scar here. And then he said, show me another one, show me another one, show me another. And he kissed every scar that I have before we came together on our wedding night. And God is the only one that could write a story that beautiful. Hallmark has nothing on the wall. And that's a love story that only God could write. And I'm so grateful that I was the recipient of that. And I cherish it, and I don't take it for granted. I love it. And what God has given me in the marriage that we have. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary in November. And, he's still blessing me with the love of my husband. And so I'm very, very grateful to him for that.
Well, it is such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it with us. And I don't know many people who still will tear up talking about their wedding day and how they met their spouse 30 years later, but it is so beautiful. And it's also such great symbolism for the love that God has for us. He showed you love by giving you that husband. And then also, it's such a beautiful picture of, I like to think about Jesus kissing our scars, and he finds us beautiful with all of those imperfections and what we see as imperfections. And exactly. I love the idea of battle scars too. It's just so beautiful. How did that impact, or what brought you into having a ministry of speaking to other people and now writing for others?
Well, because of the insecurities and things that I faced growing up, that's always, Satan knows what our buttons are to push to keep us from becoming who God's called us to be. And so that played a big role in my life and in my my ministry. My parents are pastors, and, I've always known ministry. And so I love ministry. I love service. I love laying down my life for another, that type of thing. I always have been like that, regardless of being in front of people or not. But I was at a women's conference one time and Lisa Turkhurst was the speaker at my church. And my youngest was like in a baby carrier. And my husband said, you and your best friend, you go to this conference, and, I'll keep the older two. And so we were sitting there kind of on the last row because I could get out easy if, Lindsay needed to be changed or fed or something. And Lisa Turkhurst was speaking, and And as she was speaking, she just was talking about a story of her own life and her own path to ministry. And she said, somebody in here, I believe God's calling to a speaking ministry right now. And then she kept going. She just put that sentence right in the middle and then kept going. And I had started dreaming about speaking. And of course, I told my husband it was a nightmare. I said, I had another nightmare. I was in front of a crowd speaking. He's like, he thought it was crazy for me to call it a nightmare. But when you're insecure and you feel like, who wants to hear what I have to say, kind of.
Well, they say
mentality.
that it's like the biggest fear that people have besides death, And
public speaking.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love it myself, but yeah.
I do now because I yielded myself to his purpose. And I realized, Teresa, that it's not even about me.
Right.
And when I can take me out of it, I can do anything if it's for the Lord. And so that day, I just started ugly crying in the back row. And everybody else was turning around and looking at me like, what are you doing? And the Lord just dropped it in my heart. She spoke that to you because I told her to. And so that started the process. Of course, then I had to work through it. But when I started speaking, I loved it. I love to irritate the devil. I mean, I really like to irk him and make him regret picking on me or trying to tell me I was worthless, because I believed that for far too long. And when I started speaking, I would get on stage with a solo cup, a red solo cup with the bottom cut out, and a lunch sack, paper bag. And I would say, this is me, hyperventilating in the bag. This is me speaking to you. This is me with the Lord doing what God's called me to do. And then I just put the cup up like a microphone, like a megaphone, and just say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I'm more than a conqueror through Christ Jesus. And, then I make the proclamation. So me, paper bag, God in me, megaphone. And then I just, and I start speaking because that's the truth. And so I feel like that the Lord, after so many years of me kind of hiding his gift in my heart and saying, oh, I'm preparing for that. I had this, I'm not going to say vision or whatever, but I had this thought in the shower one time, and the Lord always speaks to me in the shower because that's the only time I'm quiet and life isn't crazy. But I had this thought of this girl that's newly engaged with a beautiful diamond ring on, running around to everybody. Look, I'm engaged. Look at my gift. Look at the gift my lover gave me, and the Lord said, what are you doing with the gift I've given you? And I got on my knees in the shower and I said, Lord, I'm sorry. I will never again feel unworthy or inadequate. And I know you will prepare me because you've called me, and you will give me the platform, and you will give me the people and the whoever to speak to that you've called me to. And never again will I let Satan push those buttons of unworthiness. And so then I just started being, very bold, very, outgoing, which I was never. And now it is a joy to speak. It is a joy because when you're doing what God's called you to do, I mean, there's no greater peace than that.
Amen.
I mean, it's
That's right.
it's a high like no other. And it's kind of funny because when I would sit down after I spoke, I would kind of have this little kind of secret in my heart going, they just don't know how shy I used to be and how that was so you and not me. And so when you take your focus off yourself and you yield yourself to his voice, his words, and his purpose, you can do anything.
That's right. Well, in addition to speaking, I know that you've been doing some writing, and you're working on a book that hopefully will be coming out soon. You told me about it, and that it is a book about love, but not just the beautiful romantic love that we've been talking about so far, and even the love that God has for us, that spiritual love, but all kinds of love. And you told me that each chapter has a different kind of person to love, and lots of tips for ways that we can show love. Tell us about one of those chapters and maybe give some examples of how we can love a person like that.
Okay. All right. Well, I am working on a book, and I don't want it to sound cliche. Oh, it's a book on love. I mean, there's millions of books out there on love, but I do, I want it to be grounded in God's love for us. And, God sent Jesus because of love. I mean, for God so loved the world, he gave his son. And then so Jesus's whole purpose on this planet was love, that he laid down his life for us. And so if we're made in the image of Christ, then love is in our DNA. And
Right.
so we should also lay our life down. I mean, John 15:13 says, greater love has no one than this, that he would lay down his life for another. And so love, and if you look at 1 Corinthians 13, that everybody knows is the love chapter, patient, kind, long suffering, enduring, all those things can be easy at times and they can be hard at times. And so in my opinion, love is sacrificial. It's a choice. It's not a feeling or an emotion. It's a decision that says, God didn't feel like getting nailed on the cross for me, but he loved me so much that he paid the ultimate sacrifice. So I don't have to. So who am I not to love my neighbor or love my children like he would love them? And so, but I also am real creative, and I call myself sometimes artsy fartsy because I love creativity. I love putting a little exclamation point on the end of what I do for someone or what I give someone. And so I don't, usually I don't just give you a gift. I'll add something to it, or, do something fun or make it an adventure. But so one of the chapters, I'll just say it since it's Valentine's week, is going to be how to love your spouse. And then others will be how to love your children, how to love your neighbors, how to love your enemies, how to love yourself, and so on. And at the end of each chapter, there'll be a little section where I will give practical, fun ideas. Because some people will say, my friends tell me all the time, hey, I'm doing this for so and so. How can I spice it up or add to it or jazz it up? And so I just thought it would be fun after the meat of the chapter to add a practical application to each chapter with some ideas. And so so one of them will be, I think it should start with, how to love your spouse. And so I will talk about, married love and that kind of thing, and, the priority that they are and things like that. But I've had so much fun, just trying things, and, you have hits and misses. And sometimes you'll think, oh, this is a really great idea. And it just kind of falls flat. And you're like, well, that didn't mean as much to him as it was supposed to. But then
Right.
you just try again. You adjust and you do something different. And I remember like 15 or 20 years ago, probably closer to 20, I just hate to admit it, I bought my husband a red leather journal with a little embossed heart on the front from Barnes & Noble. And I wrote in the beginning of it that this was to be our love journal. And then anytime we wanted to write an encouraging word, write an apology, write an invitation to a date or some intimate time or whatever, we would write each other and then leave the journal somewhere that I knew it was written in, or he knew it was written in. And so it became a really special thing for us to write in the love journal and leave it, or he would write it and leave it for me. That was a creative way to express love that's out of the ordinary. It kind of is like love letters, but I've written apologies in there. I've put monkey stickers in there and say, hey, when can we monkey around, or something silly and fun, right. Or this is put your right hand on your left shoulder, put your left hand on your right shoulder and squeeze, and that's a hug from me because he travels for work. And so just silly stuff, but intimate stuff, just vulnerability, but it turns into a legacy of your love story that you don't realize you're writing. And so, after I'm gone, I don't care what my kids read about us,
right.
I will be thrilled that they knew their parents loved each other so much. And the first time I gave it to Robert, he was going on a business trip, and I wrote in it and stuck it in a suitcase, and he was going to find out if he won an award. They give a top sales awards every year to the reps and they win a trip. And we were so excited because this trip was to Greece, and he had worked hard, was trying to be, the top 3 people win the trip. And so I'd written in the love journal, if you win, read this. If you don't win, read this. And it was the same message.
Oh, I love that.
The work that you did, we make a great team. If we don't win, and so it was the same message. If and that just ministered to him that, he found that when he unpacked his suitcase and things like that. My love was there for him. Everybody loves having someone invest time in making them feel special. And so, we gave our kids some money for Christmas because of Robert's mom, an inheritance we'd received, and we wanted to pass a little bit down to them. So for Christmas, we gave them a Christmas ornament shaped like a dollar sign. And they're like, because I give them an ornament every year, and they're like, okay, an ornament. And then we had written a rhyme, a poem that led them to go find the gift, and we'd hung it in a tree in the front yard. And so the rhyme was, leading them to go find it. And you can give them a check or an envelope with a bill or something in it, or you can make a funny, silly rhyme and send them out to the front yard to retrieve it. So you look at it and you go, okay, that's more fun. And I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but that's what I love to do. That's what I love to do, is just put a little exclamation point on what we're doing, the gift or the thought or the deed or love is sacrificial.